Good morning. So this is week 7 and I'm trying to go through troubleshooting a problem that we can have in a heating system. These are our class goals. Develop mentality, the mentality required to do excellent troubleshooting, and how do we go systematically to find the root cause problem for our malfunction. Logical sequence of events. So that's something we did already cover, and we would like to know what could be the problem and the sequence of operation for our heating system. It's very important to develop the right attitude toward the job. I know it's going to be overwhelming to go to an equipment when it's dead and nothing is working. We can trace the steps one by one to know why is it not working. We should know, and it's very important to know where to locate help. That's meaning where you're gonna get information when you go and look at the boiler or furnace and it's dead. How do we start and how do we find information? We have the book. The Nora book has a lot of resources. We also did some classes and we did some troubleshooting for small little equipment and component of the boiler. The equipment manual usually have a lot of information and troubleshooting issues for common problems that always happen, so the manual will be a good place to start. Sometimes online forums are very informative and they are pertaining that equipment. So if you are working on a Carlin boiler, for example, it will be good to go to the Carlin website and visit some troubleshooting. It will be also handy to have your model number ready and what type of heating system is it. Friends are very good. Colleagues, people who work in similar equipment can give you some kind of some tips. Also, if you visit the hardware store, probably they can give you some tips about common problem that happened with that exact model. Finally, you can always call the manufacturer. They always have a hotline to answer your questions, and it's a good idea to find or locate that phone number to call them whenever needed. And again, you have to practice being patient. There are consulting companies that actually offer help, but that's usually for big equipment. For industrial, usually you're gonna, if everything fails and doesn't work, you can call the company and they have a consulting team that can help you out, find out the problem. Again, we have to develop a sense of priority, cost and time function. Like, do I want to spend the whole day trying to figure out this problem by myself, or do I need to ask somebody, or should I replace the entire thing, or what need to be replaced? So it's a good to develop this kind of skill to know which goes first and how much time I'm going to spend on that boiler and what are the other jobs waiting for me to do. So troubleshooting. First of all, we start, as you saw in the video I posted on Blackboard, you start with interviewing the customer. What happened, when did the problem start, and was the last time the boiler was running, and so on. The more information you obtain from the customer, the more you will know about the equipment. What is the problem? Did it start? Does it start and stop? Is it giving it enough heat? So based on the problem, we can try to go and zoom in into the problem. When did it start? Was it when was the last oil delivery? You'll find a lot of problems happen after an oil delivery, and that's because the oil could be not up to specification. There could be problem with the air bubbles in the pump. Was the boiler running while they were filling the tank? That also can lead you to some clues. When was the last tune-up? Usually there is a checklist next to the boiler that tells you when was it last serviced, what happened to it, what was the combustion efficiency, and so on. So that will be a good piece of information that you want to have before you start troubleshooting. When was the last service call and why? What was the problem? What was changed? And what did we fix? Inspect the area for new changes. What happened? Did they put a new boiler there? Did something change? Did they change the laundry and or the washing machine and dryer, that they put a new opening in the basement. These questions will help you a lot try to find what is the problem. Okay, so we'll start with a checkup. So are all the switches on? So we'll go and check the switches, make sure the emergency switch is on, and we have continuity, and we know how to test continuity. Test the fuse. So is the fuse okay? And again, we can check the fuse for continuity and make sure actually it's connecting. Then we'll check the thermostat. We can jumper the thermostat and see if the equipment starts or not. And also you can check see if the thermostat is responding or not. You can set the temperature high and measure the continuity and see if the thermostat is functioning the way it's supposed to. Check there's oil in the tank. Many times it will be the simplest things. There is no oil. So check that it's oil in the tank. Check the blower motor door. If it's a forced air system, make sure the blower door motor door is open. Check if it's a hot water system. Check if there's there's water in the system. If there is no water, there will be air, and if it's air, it's not going to conduct temperature from the boiler all the way to the radiator. And also check the air filter for forced air system in case if it's clogged. So this is the basic checkup you can do before you start anything. Check for these things. Typical problems. So this is some of the most typical problems we can see. First one is no heat at all. I'm getting no heat. The customer turned on the thermostat. There is no heat. It could be not enough heat. It's not heating enough. It's not reaching temperature. The boiler or the furnace is running the whole time and it's not heating. No, there is too much temperature. It's too hot too quickly. That's another issue we can check and see what's happening. There is no water, no hot water. So if we have an auxiliary water system which is heated by the boiler and we're getting no hot water, we can check the boiler and we can check also the connection between the tank and the boiler. So check there's water leak. Water leaks are an issue and also a typical problem. So we can go and check and see if the piping are leaking or there is some kind of soldering issue. Check for oil leaks, or that's one of the problems. It's like we have an oil leak, so you have to go and check where the oil is coming. Fix the problem by redoing the piping and also pressure testing the system. There's odor and smoke. This is very important and it's a very common problem, especially with furnaces and hot air system, because it means the heat exchanger could be broken. It means that we're mixing combustion air with the circulating air. Also, thermostat is not responding, or it's need to be reprogrammed, especially with the new thermostat. So these are some of the common problems we can have in our heating system. Okay, moving on. Let's again the same thing we did when we did wiring of a boiler or a furnace in the lab. We want to locate our equipment. Look for your primary control. Where is it? That's again what controls the burner, which is again same as the cat control. If you don't have a primary, if you have a cat control, check for the cat control. Check for the primary. Sometimes could be the aquastat. The aquastat could be controlling the boiler. So check for the primary being aquastat or cat control. Check, find the thermostat. Where is the thermostat and how is it connected to the boiler? Check the oil in the tank and the oil line and make sure there is some oil. And one way to check that is to run the equipment and turn on and bleed the pump and see if there's oil running through it. Okay. Determining the problem. So first of all, if we are saying there is no heat, we can jumper the thermostat, because usually the thermostat is located inside the house and the boiler or the primary is in the basement. So if we jumper the thermostat in the equipment, it should start right away. Check the cat cell resistance. We know how to do that. We can take it out and check that is the right resistance. It should be above 10,000 in the dark and less than 1,000 in the light. If the burner starts and when we jumper the thermostat, but there is no ignition. What could be the problem? Could be, of course, if it's an ignition problem, but not necessarily. It could be an oil problem. There's no ignition. That means there's no fire. We say there are three components for fire, which is air plus fuel plus ignition. So if there's no ignition, no oil, or there's too much air or too little air, one of those things can cause us to have no ignition. So these are three things we can check with the ignition. Again, we can check the motor. Maybe the motor is not pumping oil, so oil problem could be related to the motor. So if the motor is humming but it's not starting or not turning, the motor could be defected, or the capacitor and the motor could be defected. So that's something we have to check as we go along. We have this method that we like to use in troubleshooting called the 5 whys. That means we ask why until we find the problem. So, for example, if we have the control is off on safety, we'll ask why. The motor is not turning. Why is it not turning? The pump is seized. Okay, why is the pump seized? Especially if it's not too old. It is full of rust and water. Okay, that's solved the problem, but we should not stop now. We keep going. Why is it full of rust and water? The oil in the tank has water in it. That means there is a problem with excess water in the tank, and that could be solved by fixing the vent pipe and not allowing water to go into the tank. So that's the root cause, which actually led all the way to the control going on safety. So if we just fix the obvious, we might not go to the root cause, and we will risk the repetition of the same problem happening again. Okay, 5 whys, keep asking questions until you find the root cause. Here are some suggestions, although they're not very solid, meaning that it could be some other things, but this could be the obvious things that happened with the heating system. There is no problem with no solution. Again, we're developing the attitude. So again, it's not magic, it should work. And if there's a problem, there's always a solution that is permanent and will fix the problem long term. Always try to find an answer, especially to the customer. Try to find what was the problem, how did it happen. Saying that this is the way it is, it just broke, it doesn't kind of satisfy the customer and make them feel that they're throwing money where they're not supposed to. And also, it doesn't give you good credibility. Do not accept just because. I mean, do not say, oh, it just breaks. This thing just breaks. So that will let the user feel that this equipment is not reliable. So if we don't fix the boiler in a way that it will prevent it from not working anymore, that's not a good way to do it. Always have a placement part to pinpoint the defective problem. What does that mean? That means that if we need to have with us another primary control, another aquastat, another thermostat to try to replace and see if that will solve the problem or not. That will make things a little bit easier, which also lead me to the good idea of calling the customer beforehand and having the model number, or have him send you a picture of the equipment so you can have parts ready with you when you go there, especially with component like pump or ignition. Patience is very important. Again, it's very frustrating when you try to troubleshoot. Things just don't usually pan out the way you plan, so try and try again, and eventually you should know it should work. And it's challenging, but if you feel like you are not focusing or you're not clear, you should take a break and come back to it again and again. Measure the cost and time and energy that you're going to put into the equipment, and try to size the job correctly. Take breaks, stay calm, and know when to walk away or when to ask for help. What do I mean by walk away? If the problem seems to be persistent and the problem seems to be that something you cannot do, you should tell the customer that this is beyond your capabilities and you're going to ask for help, or you're going to call your manager. And why do we do that? So as we try to focus on one thing, usually we get something called tunnel vision, where you look at only one problem. So walking away from the problem and coming back to it later on will help you focus, and will help you get some kind of idea of what actually was happening. Okay, I'll stop now. I'll continue in the next PowerPoint.